Hello and welcome to another live demonstration. Today I want to use soft pastels on velour paper. Pastels have many surfaces to work on and each surface works very differently. Velour paper is very much like velvet. It feels like velvet. It's a fabric paper. What it does is it allows your soft pastels to grip to the surface, and it's really nice to work with because it gives soft edges. So as with anything, it doesn't matter what medium I'm using, I will do, just give this a shake, the black's a bit dusty, I will do a swatch. So I may have too many colours here, I might not use them all, but with pastels, unlike watercolours, you don't mix the colours together on a palette to create a new colour, you can mix them by layering, and so you often have many tones and shades with pastels. So you can see here all the colours that I may use, but by doing this I now know what this colour looks like on the grey background I'm using. So it's really useful for me just to kind of know what colour I'm going to pick up next. So on the velour paper I can see I've got some mucky fingerprints, which is not unusual for me, but just using a putty rubber I can pull and lift up any areas that are still a bit dirty. And then if there's areas I want to fix in the drawing, I can also use the putty rubber at a later date. Used a soft pencil to sketch down because the velour is not very comfortable taking hard pencils. So hard pastels tend to scrape into the surface, but so you need a softer range or, you know, a soft pencil to give you your initial drawing. So I chose a red pepper because the SAA have brought out 3 new red pastels which really suit this subject, so I made it easy for myself. First colour I'm going to use, it's called SAA Red. It's a nice bright red, and for the other 3 reds it's the mid-tone, so I'm going to start putting on the mid-tones of the pepper. I have an original pepper with me, but I've taken photographs because the light isn't great here and you lose some of the tones and textures. So I've taken a photograph just to help me with reference. Plus, I wanted a much more raised image, and that means I'd have to have a pepper up here. So just the photograph will work for me at the moment. But I may quickly look at the original just to give me some, you know, a little bit more detail. So it's using both for this. So just starting, this is a bit too long for me. The full pastels, I often break them just to get them started. It means I can use the edge. And you can see here how I can start to build up and add the colour using the edge. It's quite a nice colour, and it depends on the pastel, but some layers you need to just add some layers and then it starts to really grip the colour. All I'm just doing is just putting some colour on. I'm not over worrying about what colour's going on where at the moment. And you can see the soft edges it's creating. Okay, so I'm just going to put some of the, I think this is red orange, just at the top here. Now I know I can layer, so I'm not so worried about not leaving areas of light because I can add those on top. This is the great thing about pastel, you can add layers. A bit too, again, too long. I can't use the edge if I have it that long. So just bringing out some of the orange tones in the pepper. And you'll see I'm actually trying to follow, as I'm putting the pastel on, the shape of the pepper, the round body. And by doing that and making your marks move in that direction, it actually builds up the form. So still very flat colour at the moment. And I think people get very frustrated with these stages. They kind of think, well, they want to get that real detail down very quickly. And actually, painting's often a lot of stages and a lot of different layers. And you will get the detail on, but you don't need to do it now. You need to get shape on, tone on, colour on. There we go. So just go into the darker red. Again, I'm going to snap it just to give me a smaller piece. And I know the light is over here because I actually put a little cross, because that reminds me the light's hitting the pepper from that direction, so the shadow will be on this side and the darker areas will be underneath. Sometimes you need to remind yourself, because to be honest, I'm not looking at the subject as much as I should do, because for me this isn't a drawing of that pepper as such. It's more me showing you how you can build up your tones. It's the pastels and the paper, not just the subject. So I'm going to use it for reference, but I'm not going to use it for all the detail. That's, you know, I can add that on when I feel it needs it. So the dark areas are at the bottom. And on this paper, you don't have a lot, you can rub it into the paper and soften it, but it's not a very smudgy paper. So what I'm doing is I'm just rubbing it into the surface to ensure it grips, which then gives me a layer to build up my other pastel layers on. And again, I'm using circular motions because the pepper has some roundness. I think those colours work together. I don't want to lose all the colour, and I do know that these colours on top of each other work really nicely. So there, I'm looking at my photograph and I can see the dark areas are here, but I'm not going to take it all the way up. I want to keep some of that orange at the top. Dark here. And there's some dark areas here. And you'll see it actually, especially with pastel, you can build up your layers really quite quickly. Just, I think it needs to be a bit darker here. I'm constantly reviewing, re-looking, rejudging to see if I need to move the darkness higher or it's working where it is. Okay, so that's the red. What I'm going to do, because I like to get all my colours down in one go and then start to build from there. I don't like little areas of left colour, it just distracts me. So I'm just going to put a nice light green on here. I'll just cover the whole area because I know that pastel is very good at layering and covering. Okay, so for me that really, you know, gives me something to work on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and work this way down, then I don't have to lean on areas. For me, that's quite controlled. I usually just jump around everywhere. I'm going to try and see if I can work this way down. And then I don't have to lean on the areas. So there's some texture in the stalk. It's got lines, and you can see how by just using the edge of the pastel you can build those up. Just going to use, this is dark green, so that's, I don't want to use much more than the 3 greens, to be honest. I'm just now adding some texture so it has dark areas at the tip where it's been broken off, and it has lines, texture. And it's going to be dark here while it's inside the body of the pepper. So now starting to look for darker areas. See how quickly that built up. I'm just going to add a bit of shadow now, just so I remind myself that this is a dark area. And don't worry about the colour I've put on. Shadows aren't necessarily black. They have all different colours, and the purple works really well with the colours in the pepper. And what I will do is also put some of the colour of the pepper into the shadow, because it reflects, the colour of the pepper is reflected onto the surface. All I'm doing is I'm just making notes for myself as I'm going along to remind me, because I will forget that the light is coming from this, and then it will look odd because I'll have a bit of light here and a bit of light there. So I'm constantly reminding myself. So bits of stray pastel on the surface, not a problem. Just use the putty rubber to lift those off, and you can use it to clean your fingers as well. Okay, so I'm just going to now think about some more darker tones. So I can see how much darker this red will go, or I might have to start adding a little bit of purple, which I think I will do. So I'm just going to touch it, the purple, very softly. So it may look a little dark, but I'm not worried about that, because I know I can go back over it, soften it with the red. So dark under here, bring that through. And with pastels, a lot of the way of working is your layering. That looks really nice. That purple works really nicely alongside the red. So I'm looking for form, I'm looking for shape. I'm looking to make this pepper look much more rounded. And I know with pastels, I can put light on at the end if I want to. So dark areas will be inside the pepper here. Okay. I'm going to just use a bit of yellow on here, just to add a little bit more brightness. For me, these colours are looking a bit dull. I'm not making up colours, but I'm adding more colours than you see when you just look at a pepper quickly. So I'm adding more oranges and more tones, because this is, as an artist, this is where you take a very flat drawing into a much more 3D, much more lifelike, and much more vibrant finished piece. So I want to go back in with the red. So again, keep changing, keep building up layers and tones until I'm happy with what I have. And this is the beauty of pastel. You can do this. See, let's bring that round. Okay, so I'll probably do this, then I'll have a short break, because that will give me a chance to look, review, think about where I can go next. But you can see there, I'm just adding red again, and how that's blending in the purple, which I think has probably gone a little too far, but take it back. And just taking that harsh purple away, giving you darker tones. Okay, so we'll have a short break there, give me a chance to look and review, and then we'll come back and we can now start to bring highlights and really start to look at the form again.
Let us bring out the artist in you. If you'd like to learn how to paint or improve your painting, the SAA is here to inform, encourage and inspire you every step of the way. When you become an SAA member, you get so many benefits, including the free bi-monthly newsletter Paint, packed with inspiring step-by-step projects, fascinating articles, and detailed information to get your creative juices flowing. Discounts on over 13,000 art products featured on the SAA website and in the Home Shop catalogue, with free order line and free delivery in the UK mainland. A devoted SAA team on hand to answer your questions and give you the confidence and motivation you need to start painting and develop at a pace that suits you. Plus, a free welcome pack filled with gifts and practical help to get you started, as well as the opportunity to make friends with like-minded people.
Best thing about being a member is the inspiration from the magazines, to be able to purchase things at a very reasonable price.
Yeah, you get the reduction on all the materials, the advice you get.
I could shop from home.
It's a community.
It seemed like a very friendly sort of organisation.
If somebody's thinking of joining, don't spend too long thinking. Just join. They'll love it.
Hello and welcome back. So while you had a short break, I've had a chance to look and review, and I can see where I want to work on areas. And this is always useful when you're sketching. What I could do is keep working, and sometimes overwork. So it's actually useful to walk away from a piece of work at many stages. And that's why I often have 2 or 3 on the go, because block that one off, start another, come back, and you've got fresh eyes. So shadow on the top of here, even though I know the light's hitting here, it's not actually hitting the top of the pepper just here. It's hitting it further round because of the shape of the pepper. So I'm just adding a little bit more red right at the top here. So it still seems a bit flat, which I'm not worried about because I know it will bling to life once I start to really put and look at the highlights. And then from those highlights I can also sometimes see where I do need to add a little bit more depth. So I'm going to add some highlights now. I'm going to put in some yellow. So I'm looking at here where there'll be some light hitting. Just being very careful with it. And you notice I'm not using white yet. I'm not going to put those white areas on just at the moment. So I'm looking at this and the light is just hitting there. And then, because this is very rounded, it's hitting here. Some of the light is coming down. This is really nice and soft. A bit here. Possibly a little bit there. Maybe. So this is kind of a lovely heart shape. And here it's actually a little bit of light as well. And I don't know if you can see by just adding some of those subtle highlights that it's just started to make it a much more 3D form. I'm not looking for a total representation of a pepper. What I want to use the materials and the subject to work together. So again, just going back in, sharpening some of these lost edges, which are a little easier as you've got more layers on now. So now pastel is sticking to pastel. Okay, that's nice there. And I think possibly I need a little bit darker here. Just think of here. So red's bringing it out. Possibly I'm just overthinking this a little bit. So I'm just going to go in with the red, the purple, sorry. And now really decide what forms I want to bring forward. Sorry. Mind my left hand. So again, not used any black. If there was a much darker red, I probably would have used that, but I haven't. And I think the purple works really nicely with the reds and the oranges already in here. So I've got a dark purple, which I'm just going to just use very carefully and even into the stalk. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing the colours together. I've got purple in the pepper. I'm now using a dark purple in the stalk, and I think it just holds it all together a little bit more. I need my left hand to support, but I've got to keep it out of shot. And you'll notice that actually the shadow doesn't go quite to the bottom of the pepper. There is still some reflected light right at the bottom edge here. I'm just going to make sure it's sitting on something. So no black used. It's all done using colour. So shadow is often many colours, and I've put some of the reflected shadow, some colour in here. And you don't have to, depends on what you're trying to achieve with a shadow. What I'm trying to achieve with this is that it's sitting on something. And actually this pepper has tipped itself quite forward. So really under here is actually a lot darker because it's actually sitting on the bits behind. I need to take this up a little bit. So I'm looking at what I've created here. I'm also just looking at the reference as well, just to see that they still work together. I want some of this lovely purple in here. Again, nice texture. You can see here I possibly need a little bit more definition to make it sharp. It's a solid object, and this surface creates quite fuzzy lines. So I'm trying to do a nice sharp subject with fuzzy lines. So now I've got the white, I'm going to be very, very careful. The reason I've left it till last, because I do really want to look at where I am going to add the light. And this is where I'm really looking at the photograph, because I want to just make sure I don't overdo this. And you see, just sometimes a few touches in the right place really help bring this together. And they don't have to be little circles, they're just touches. So I think we're nearly there. Just actually a bit of light here, and just make sure that's a little bit more. I quite like that. I love the colours that are coming out in that, and I don't want to keep working on it and lose some of that freshness I've got there. So I hope you enjoyed this. The velour paper is a really wonderful paper to work on. It's really interesting. So, you know, have a go, try little pieces out, and, you know, it has lots of different colour backgrounds. So using different colour backgrounds on subjects, and, you know, how does it work with the subject. So join me next week for some more live demonstrations.